I'm not unhappy. I'm doing things I enjoy, like gardening and going out with my friends, but I just keep asking myself, is this all there is?
Talking with people about how to have a great retirement. This is the Rock Your Retirement Show. We don't talk about money, but we talk about almost everything else you need to rock your retirement. Now, here's your host, Kathy Klein.
Welcome to Rock Your Retirement. This is a show where we talk about what you need to know besides money when you retire. Our guest for today is Janelle Anderson, and she works with women as a certified professional coach through her business, Emerging Life Coaching. Now, she typically works with women who are transitioning into a new season of life, whether that's the busy mother raising children, probably not our listeners, or the empty nest season, probably our listeners, or the busy career life to the season of retired life. And she helps them discover a new game to play and who they truly want to be in this third act of life. Her work with clients includes one-on-one private coaching sessions, as well as coaching groups, workshops, and personal development classes. She developed a retirement transition course called Pathways to a Fulfilling Life in Retirement. And that's the whole reason why I wanted to have her come onto the show. So welcome to the show, Janelle.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So how did you create this course?
I went to Virginia Tech, it's close by where I live, and they had an event one day, and it was a kickoff event to start their Lifelong Learning Institute, which is really a lot of classes for people 50 and older that they can enroll in all kinds of different classes. And I went over to their kickoff event and just approached the people at the table that organized the event and said, hey, I work with women over 50 and I would love to do a workshop here or a class. And they were very excited about that idea. And they connected me with the local AARP president. And so he and I met and we were just kicking around some ideas. And he said, I would really like to offer classes dealing with transitions because people 50 and older are going through so many of them. And so we talked about this idea of the transition into retirement. And so then I developed a 6-week class with that idea in mind, and they accepted it, and we did it, and it was a very well-attended, popular class.
That's awesome. Do you do this class online as well, or was it strictly for the AARP event for lifelong learning?
It was originally for them, and so from there, I am developing a program, a one-on-one coaching program where people could coach with me going through similar, it's taken from that class, so a very similar program. And then I am thinking about offering it online. I have not yet. I've only done the class in person with that group, but that was just this past spring. So it's a work in progress, but it definitely is on the future docket to develop into an online course and then a coaching one-on-one program.
Well, that's pretty cool. So what's covered in this 6-week course? Do you cover one thing at a time, or are there several things? How does it work?
Well, it starts off the first week. It's a 6-week. The coaching program would be 6 weeks, and the online class would be very similar to this. So we would start off just assessing where the person is or where the people are in this idea of transition. There's cycles that people go through when they're going through transitions, and there are many in retirement. So we look at that, like, where are you? And I call it REC. It stands REC. It stands for release, explore, and create. And so they might be in that release phase where they're still letting go of the past life and still kind of getting used to not working and not being around the people they used to work with and not doing all the day-to-day things that they did in their job. And then they might have moved into the phase of explore, like, what do I want to do now? What are all those opportunities out there? And things that maybe I haven't done for a long time that I would love to, check out, or new things. And then they might be in the create stage where they're actually setting out steps, definite goals and action steps and plans to create this new life in retirement. And so people are at different stages. So we look at that to begin with, kind of where are you? And it's totally normal wherever you are. You might be in the release stage for a year, just you need that time. And so we just kind of lay that groundwork. Often there's a lot of self-judgment, like I should be somewhere else. I should be further along, in my transitioning into retirement. So we just deal with that and just put them in a place of, this is where I am and it's perfectly fine. And that just kind of helps set the stage for the rest of the program.
It's like stressing over the fact that you have blue eyes instead of brown eyes.
Exactly. So
you are what you are.
Yeah, just give yourself permission. Just relax. And there are some assessments I also do. There's we do a values assessment, which is really helpful when you're trying to kind of get to know, well, who am I?
Is that in week 1, that values assessment?
Yes, I give that to them. Either they work on it between week 1 and week 2, or sometimes I give that to them as prep work before beginning the program, so that we look at it in week 1. There's also another assessment that's more in depth that is optional because it costs a little bit more, but it's very powerful. It's called the Energy Leadership Index Assessment. And that is something I'm certified to give and to assess and analyze. And it really is like holding up a mirror to see where you or how you show up in your life, in the different areas of your life, in your relationships, and looking at it in the perspective of energy levels, which really relate to how we think and what we believe, what are our emotions, all of that in any given situation. It looks at your stress reaction, and it kind of looks at your default tendencies of how you basically show up in life. And it's very in-depth and it's very enlightening. So I give that to them ahead of time, and then we have a debrief session where we really go into that in depth and look at where they're at in their life.
And what's that called again, Janelle?
It's called the Energy Leadership Index Assessment.
Okay, thank you. Energy Leadership Index Assessment.
Correct.
Perfect. Great, thanks. So that would also be done in week 1 or in preparation of week 1, but there's an extra fee for that.
Right.
Okay, great. So what happens in week 2?
So then we've laid the kind of the groundwork of where are you and all of that. And then we start envisioning, where do you want to go and who do you want to be in this season of life? You choose that, and so setting that vision. And I have some exercises I do to really help them picture in detail, who do they want to be and where do they want to go, and just dream, just take off the limits and don't worry about, whether or not you can afford it or whether or not you can do it. Let's just dream. Let's dream big and kind of get that down on paper in some form, or maybe do a vision board and just really, paint a big picture of what's possible. Okay. And then we go from there into what's stopping you then?
Is that week 3 or is that still in week 2?
That would be week 3.
Okay. So what's stopping you in week 3? And what do you do in that week?
Well, there's an acronym that I use. It's GAILS, GAILS, and that stands for Gremlins, Assumptions, Interpretations, and Limiting Beliefs. And those are all inner blocks, things that within that can stop us and hold us back. And so we start to look at, what are your thoughts, and what are the thoughts that come up every time you think about doing this, but you don't do it, and then we kind of just dive into that, like what's getting in your way and why is it that getting in your way, and how can we remove that obstacle so that you can move forward. And a lot of times it's a reframing of what you're believing and looking at, is this really true what I'm believing, or is it just something I'm assuming is true? So there's a lot of inner work there. It's kind of like rewriting the inner story of what you're telling yourself, tapes that run in your mind, over and over again.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Okay, so Gales, Gails, Gremlins, assumptions, interpretations, limiting beliefs. Did I miss an S or?
The S is plural for
Gales.
Oh,
more than one.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I was writing this down furiously, trying to figure out.
Along with that, too, we also talk about outer blocks, because there are things in life, circumstances that can influence whether or not we step out toward a goal, like money, or maybe somebody in your life that's not supporting you, or, it could be where you're living and you want to maybe live at the beach and do some things at the beach, but you're in the mountains. Just those kinds of things, and how to work around those to really achieve your goals.
Okay, I get it. Kind of like, I would love to travel 90 days a year, go on one of these round-of-the-world tours. And my husband is like, no, I don't want to do all that traveling. I want to stay home.
Yeah, there's an outer block for you.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, I'm blocked from that.
Exactly.
Okay, now all of that is done on week 3. Is that correct?
Yes. And now going into week 4, we would probably do more work around that. And in that, week 4 would be like, okay, we've identified some blocks. How can we remove them? And we talk a lot about those energy levels, just identifying, because there's an energy level associated with our thoughts and our emotions. For example, somebody who is thinking, oh, this is never going to change. I can't do anything about this. That would be what we would call level 1. And that's a level where if you're having those kinds of thoughts and beliefs, you're not likely to take much action because you believe that you can't change anything. But if you're at a level 5, that's more like, oh, I just see opportunities everywhere. There's an opportunity there. There's so many possibilities. So if you have that kind of thought and the emotions associated, that would be, excitement and enthusiasm, and then you're more likely to take action at that point.
So is your goal to help people move up those levels?
Yes, and just help them identify where they are and why they're there, and then how can they choose a different, you really can choose how to think. And that takes some work because we have thought patterns that, we've had for a long time. But it's definitely possible, and it's very empowering when people start to see, and even just identifying, oh, I'm at level 1 and it's okay for right now because that's where I'm at. So no condemnation, but I don't want to stay here. So how can I, what's a new empowering thought or belief that I can have? And it's just the possibilities, putting the possibilities in front of people when they've so long thought that there weren't any is uplifting, and you can feel and hear the energy shift even with that. So then, once they start to see where they're at and kind of get an understanding of why they're feeling that way and why they're thinking that way, then we begin to, write that new story. Okay, let's start thinking about how can we shift? What's a new thought we could start to have and think,
Is all of that in week 4?
Yes. So between 3 and 4, we're really working a lot in that area of thoughts and emotions and what's blocking, and then how can we shift. So those kind of go together around that whole idea.
So week 3 would be what's stopping you, and week 4 is possibilities? Is that how you would?
Yeah. Write a new story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So what happens in week 5?
So in week 5, we start looking at relationships, because relationships are another area of a lot of transition when you're going into retirement. Part of it is leaving the relationships you developed at work, and there's that sense of loss there. Another relationship that's huge in transition in this time of life is the marriage relationship.
Right. I've actually seen a lot of people get divorced after retirement.
Oh, yeah. And I have too. And I have clients that are either in the middle of divorce, or they have divorced, or they're contemplating it, or they're just like in that struggle of, I don't know who is this person I'm married to? And just kind of assessing and then deciding, do I want to stay in this marriage and work on it and make it something new? Or, so there's a whole lot of work around that. And I don't give advice as a coach. I approach it as the client has the answers within, and I just want to draw that out of them, and I want to help them see what those answers are that they have within. And so around the relationship area, since I am not a counselor and I don't give advice, I just try to help them kind of look at the relationships, the key relationships in their life, and where are they? Are they energizing? Are they bringing life to me? Or are they draining me? And then deciding, okay, if they're energizing, how do I enhance that and build that more? If they're draining, then what do I want to do about it? And especially with the marriage. Now, with the marriage relationship, I like to just get them to focus on themselves and stop trying to change their partner, because that doesn't usually work. But if they begin to look at themselves, like, how am I responding to my partner? And what they say to me or whatever they're doing, they're choosing to do. How do I choose to respond? And then what's happening inside of me to cause me to respond the way I am? I have done a lot of that work myself. And so I'll tell them stories from my own life that really help. So that really seems to cause a huge shift, just working within your own mind and heart, and looking at yourself in that relationship.
Well, I love the fact that you say it's, how do I respond? Because what I have noticed is that some of us talk to our spouses in a way that we never talk to our friends.
Right. Exactly.
Sometimes you're like, wow, you're treating your friend in a much better manner than you would treat your spouse. Like if your friend said, "Oh, did you get a new dress?" You might respond, "Oh yeah, it's really great about it over here." And if your spouse said, "Oh, did you get a new dress?" Then I can buy a new dress if I want to.
That's a great example. Exactly. When I did this in my own self, I discovered, when I finally took the time to look within me instead of trying to point out all of his faults, I discovered that a lot of the way I was responding to him was out of this defense mechanism. I had this limiting belief that whatever it was he was saying to me, he was trying to point out something wrong in me. And I would immediately get defensive and come back on the attack. And when I started to really look within, I realized, wait a minute, he is not attacking me. He is upset because of something within him, and I didn't do anything wrong. And it was really how I was seeing myself. And so through this process, the buttons that used to get pushed when he would start to yell, because he did yell a lot when he got upset, I disconnected the buttons because I stopped taking it personally. And I found myself being calm, and it was amazing. It was like I was watching a movie. I was so detached from that emotional reaction.
Wow.
To just, oh, look, he's upset. I wonder what's going on, and then I was able to look at him with compassion and caring and see things from his point of view, because I was no longer on the defensive.
That's great.
And that one shift made huge, huge differences in our relationship, because he began to respond to me differently. And so it's been a huge eye-opening experience for me on a personal level.
Well, that's great. Well, I think it's fantastic what you're doing for couples. So, but you only spend 1 week on that, so it's not like a lifetime counseling session.
No. We sort of assess, and then we talk a little bit about that, what I just talked about, and then I try to help them come up with a plan of maybe one thing they can start to work on, and then that gets them started. And then once they work on that one area, then they start to see how it makes a difference in the relationship, and then they can go on from there. So it really gets them started. And I've seen a lot of huge changes in my clients' relationships just from doing that little bit of work, because it's really just being aware of what's really going on is a huge piece. And then they can take it from there, or they can continue to work with me beyond the program. That's always an option.
Well, before we get to working with you beyond the program, what do you do in week 6?
Week 6 is we tie it all together, and we look at everything we've covered, and then we create your best life. So you have come up with some things that you want to do. You've looked at the things that have been getting in your way, and we've worked some on relationships because that can sometimes get in your way as well. We've talked about your thoughts and your beliefs and your how that affects your behaviors. And so now let's create a plan. What do you want to do? Where do you want your life to be in 6 months or a year? Maybe even a long vision plan for your retired life. Make a bucket list, start to create definite action steps and goals. And I give them some worksheets that help them set goals. And it really gives them a tool to use later when we're not working together anymore. They have this tool of how to vision out the next 3 months, how to vision out the next 6 months, and then really write down specific steps of how to get there. And so that way they leave the program with a better understanding of who they are and what they want to be and how they can really enjoy retirement and do all the things that they really want to do and create the life that they really want to live in retirement.
Well, that's great. That's wonderful that you do this. Now, I know that your focus on your one-on-one coaching is for women over, was it 50 or 55? Anyway, women in their baby boomer women.
Yes.
And but this class that you created, that's not necessarily targeted towards women, is it?
Not necessarily. The class that I taught at Virginia Tech was men and women, and it was perfectly fine for both. I normally work one-on-one with just women. That does not mean that I won't work with men. That's just my area of focus.
Right. You work with, right, exactly. But I guess I was curious if any couples took the class together.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we did have two married couples. I'm trying to think if there was another one. At least 2 married couples in that class. And one of the wives in one of those couples actually approached me at the end and wanted to start a group coaching with women. So we did do that and went further. And it was really interesting because she, in the group, started to reveal some of the struggles she was having in her marriage, but you never could tell in the class. And I don't know what the husband got out of the class, but he was very attentive, and he came every week and seemed to really enjoy it. So I'm hoping the 2 of them are working on that. But she did create some really good steps and goals of how to begin to work on that marriage relationship. And she is now starting to write books and start her own writing company. So she's got a plan for what she wants to do in retirement. So that was really exciting.
That's really great. Yeah. Now, before the show, when we were talking, you had told me a couple of stories, one about Margie and one about Sandra. Do you want to share either of those stories?
Sure. I'll share Margie. She came to me really, as an empty nester. Basically, she did not work outside the home, but it was like a retirement transition because she had spent, her whole adult life with her children, just raising them and being a mom at home. And now all of a sudden they had all moved out and she was really kind of lost. Didn't really know what to do. She didn't have a whole lot of self-confidence in herself. She had not used, any job skills to speak of. And so she really didn't know, if I did try to get a job, would I be able to? And she didn't really want a job. She wanted to go out and volunteer in a coffee shop because she loves being around people. And she was terrified of even doing that. And so we worked a lot on that. How does she see herself? And the big limiting belief or interpretation basically was, I am so afraid of what other people are going to think of me or what other people's opinions are of me. And so we really worked to reframe that to where she realized, that is not important. It's how I see myself. And she's through about the 3-month mark, we started to really see her just stepping into her own self and just stepping into this place of power and confidence. And she volunteered at that coffee shop and loved it and did really well. And even though she had some fears still, but she faced them and she dealt with them and she learned how to reframe, how to know where her energy level was, how to make that shift in the moment. And then we did some work around her relationship with her husband, and that has really progressed nicely. A lot of it around communication, just as we were saying, earlier, just responding to him, kind of being judgmental and critical of him, where she wouldn't necessarily be the same way with a friend. So we really looked at that, and she started changing how she was responding to him, and then he started responding to her differently. So their marriage, when we stopped working together, their marriage was much stronger and was really making progress. And then her children, her grown children, she needed to set boundaries with them. They would come over and expect her to be mom again and do all the cooking and cleaning and take care of the children. And she wasn't asserting herself. And so she learned through coaching how to really just speak her mind. This is what I want, and this is who I am, and this is what I expect. And so that started really changing. And one of her daughter-in-laws I saw at an event, and she said, "Oh my gosh, the change in Margie is unbelievable." Her confidence in herself was the biggest thing that she saw.
That must make you feel so good to be able to see the fruits of your labor like that.
Oh, it does. It's just, that's what really lights my fire is to see the changes that I see in my clients and just how much happier they are and how they really have overcome so much. It's so rewarding. It's just so rewarding. It's the best thing in the world to me.
Well, thank
Definitely.
you so much. We are coming up to the end of the show, so I wanted to get in the 2 questions that I like to ask all my guests.
Okay.
And the first one is, what do you think people ought to know before they retire?
Well, and, I've talked about this a little bit already, but really knowing that there is not just one transition that's going to happen. I think often people are financially prepared. They've done all of that planning for years. They put their money away and they've got, all of that set up. But then all of a sudden they're retired and they're experiencing all these other transitions and they don't know what to make of it. So just know that it's many transitions, and if that's okay, and that's totally normal. And sometimes you just might need some time to just readjust and figure out where you are and what you want to do, and not to be worried about that, but just to know there's a lot of changes. Relationships change, how you spend your time changes. And a lot of times there's experience of loss of purpose and identity. And that's totally normal too. But just to know that you are still the same person that accomplished all the wonderful things you accomplished. And that part of your life does not disappear, but you can actually draw from that to continue to make an impact, maybe in a different way. So I think that's really, really important to know before you retire.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I'm sure my listeners will too. And then the last question is, what if they didn't know you before they retired? Okay. They didn't hear this podcast. They retired 5 years ago. They're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
What is your advice for that person?
Yes, I actually have a client that was in that position. She'd been retired for a year and has been stuck. Her biggest thing that kept coming up was I'm not unhappy. I'm doing things I enjoy, like gardening and going out with my friends, but I just keep asking myself, is this all there is? And so I would say, just appreciate the moment. Live right now in the present moment and start to really learn how to really find joy right now and not regret the past. Just let the past go. Don't worry about the future, but live every moment to the fullest. And that can really help people get unstuck, because a lot of being stuck is, oh, I should be doing this, or I've wasted all this time, or I'm worried about the future. I don't know what the future holds. But if you can let both of those go and just live right now and start looking around at what you have and what's around you and begin to enjoy every single moment and think about what really makes you happy, what really makes your heart sing. Is it gardening? Is it going out and taking a walk? Is it having coffee with friends? Whatever it might be, and bring more of those things into your life. And when you're doing those things, really, really enjoy them in the moment. And that starts to let go of a lot of the things keeping you stuck. And then once you've begun to really enjoy where you are now, then you're in a better place to think, well, what do I want to do tomorrow? And what do I want to do next week? And that really tends to just kind of propel you out of that stuckness.
Great advice. Thank you so much. Now, if my listener wants to contact you, how do they get a hold of you?
They can email me. My email is Janelle, Janelle, at emerginglifecoaching.com. And that's EMERGING, life coaching. And my phone number is 540-391-0332. And then I also have a website, which is emerginglifecoaching.com.
Well, thank you so much. And I wanted to tell my listeners that Janelle has put together this great freebie for the show. And you can find that freebie on the Rock Your Retirement website. So she put together the 5 roadblocks to a happy life in retirement. It is awesome. Thank you, Janelle, for putting that together. And to get that, just go to rockyourretirement.com/roadblocks. So we hope that you enjoy today's episode of Rock Your Retirement, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Rock Your Retirement Show. If you are rocking your retirement or know someone who would make a great guest on our show, please send us an email at podcast@rockyourretirement.com.
Hi, this is Kathy. When I'm not hosting Rock Your Retirement, I'm helping people with their Medicare insurance. One of the times you need to check your Medicare insurance is when you've moved. To get my free guide, 5 Things You Need to Know About Medicare When You Are Moving, just go to medicarequick.com/move. And in the meantime, listen to these cool disclosures. Neither Medicare Quick nor its agents is connected with the federal Medicare program. Medical insurance licensed in the states of California, Florida, Nevada, and Texas, and Medicare Advantage and prescription drug plan service areas vary. California Insurance License 0797566.